This is breaking news from Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
And a good Sunday morning on this Sunday after Thanksgiving to you, everyone. I'm Bill Ritter along with Phil Lipoff. You've been watching the breaking news all morning on Eyewitness News. A terrible train accident in the Bronx. Metro North, Hudson Line, southbound into Grand Central. You see what happened. 4 trains derailed, 2 of them flipping over. At least 4 people are dead, 63 people hurt. We're told 11 of those people in 4 area hospitals are in critical condition. This train heading south, as we said, on the Hudson Line, one of the nation's busiest rail lines. 2 out of every 3 commuters here in this area ride the rails. This is a special edition of Eyewitness News as we have continuing coverage. For those of you turning in to This Week with George Stephanopoulos, it will obviously not run because it's breaking news. We are figuring out a way for you to get this program at some point during this day, and we will bring it to you sometime when we find it out. Dan Rice is at Newscopter 7. Let me just say, Phil, anything you need to add, because you've been covering this all morning?
Well, no, just if viewers are just tuning in, we've been covering this for about 2 hours now or so. This is Palisades and Independence Ave in the Spite and Dival section of the Bronx. Dan Rice is giving us pictures from Newscopter 7. You can see how violent this derailment was and just how close that first car came to going into the water. We spoke to a man, Bill, who was in that first car. He didn't even know himself how close it was. He was able to get out on his own. He had a head and neck injury.
Sounded like he was a little bit of shock when I heard him talking.
It did. He was definitely dazed, and he got to the he got to the hospital, and he's doing all right. But now, unfortunately, Dan can't give us the pictures he was earlier on because there are, as we know now, 4 fatalities, and there are some covered bodies there that we don't want to show. You see, and we're showing this picture. You've seen it all morning, Phil and Dan. This train came so close to the water. Just the edge of it already seems to be in the water. Dan, normally these trains packed with people. If this had been a weekday, packed with people, and there are so many people who are heading to other trains to make it for the end of this Thanksgiving weekend. I know students trying to get back to school, people getting away from family now and leaving for this long holiday weekend. Normally this train would have been very packed.
Yeah, Bill, and that's a very good point. During the week, obviously, this could have been far worse than what we're seeing right now. And then people, of course, coming back into the city because this was a southbound train. So this would have been people coming back into the city at the end of a long holiday weekend. Now, our pilot, Arthur Anderson, just moved the helicopter so we can come back in and show you the scene so that we don't show you some of the pictures we don't want you to see. But obviously, what you're looking at here is that lead car, the first car of the train that would have been heading towards Grand Central Terminal. And that's the car that ended up closest to the Harlem River. You see on the top of your picture, you do see some of the NYPD still doing their investigation. You see the K9 unit on the scene there as well. Earlier, we did see the NYPD divers in the water. It appears at this point they may have moved on or gotten back into their Zodiac. But we did see them searching the water. Obviously, the one thing you have to be careful of is where the victims would have been thrown at the end of this crash. And they're searching every possibility because, as we've been talking about, this lead car came so close to going into the Harlem River. It appears the mud and the brush keeping it from entering the waterway itself. We'll bring the picture out a little bit, and what you're going to see is the second and third car behind it. Both of those cars ended up on their sides. We saw ladders propped up against those 2 cars. They had to get the victims out. As a matter of fact, one of the ladders still on the scene there because the only way to get into that vehicle is to go onto the side of what would normally be the side of the vehicle and enter through the doors and to lift people out of the car and get them to the help that they would have needed. We'll come back out to the 4th car. That one almost perpendicular to the tracks. That one, the last one, leaving the railroad bed. You can see on either end of that car, you can see wooden planks that are trying to hold it up from keeping it toppling over completely as firefighters looked around that area. And of course, the last 3 cars of this train, all 3 of them off of the tracks, and because of the angle we're taking now, just so to avoid some of the scene down there, at the end of these 3 cars, you're going to see a little blue piece of metal there in those woods. That's the locomotive that would have been pushing those cars down towards Grand Central Terminal. All of the cars in the locomotive left the tracks. Not one has been left on there. And of course, you see multiple tracks for that area. A lot of the railroad bed damage. That's going to be a big problem for tomorrow morning's commute. But right now, the bigger thing is trying to investigate what happened down here, the rate of speed it was going, and of course, what would have caused any of those cars, forget about all those cars, to leave the railroad bed and end up where they did.
Dan, for the viewers who are just tuning in, and again, if you're tuning in to see This Week with George Stephanopoulos, we are delaying that obviously because of his breaking news. We'll have information when you can see it later. Dan, if you could Well, you're looking at the governor, I believe, right now taking a tour. As we're watching this, Dan, when we get a shot later, tell us exactly where this is at Spuyten Duyvil. There are Amtrak trains just to the west of that at the split, right? And where this train was going was to Grand Central, correct?
That's right. The Hudson line is shared by Amtrak and Metro North and with the freight trains as well. And right behind the apartment building right here, again, because of the angle we're at, we can't show you exactly, but right behind that building, the tracks for Amtrak and Metro North split off. Amtrak tracks are the ones that go along the river, the Hudson River, and then those go across the Spuyten Duyvil Bridge. And those trains would normally be heading for Pennsylvania Station in New York City. So that's where the Amtrak trains are split off there. And the Metro North trains, they bear off to what would be the left if you're going southbound. They break off to the left and they continue on down to Grand Central Terminal. The Spuyten Duyvil station for Metro North being that walkway right there. That's where the train would have been going through. Now, it's unclear to me whether they would have been stopping at that station or just going through that area. I'm not sure if it was a local or express train. One of my Twitter followers, Guillermo Flores, is telling me that perhaps this train was not stopping. It wasn't scheduled to stop at this station. Its next stop was supposed to be Grand Central Terminal. So it's a little unclear as to whether the train was stopping at the station or would have been continuing on the Grand Central Terminal.
Yeah. And Dan, you can see where it's split, and one car goes one way and the rest go the other way. Obviously, it must have been horrific for people on the train. I want to get out to Josh Einiger because Josh just conducted an interview with someone we need to hear from. Josh?
Yeah, hey, guys, we're here just above the tracks, and I want to show you from this vantage point what we're looking at this point as we move on and tell you we've heard from the governor's people that he is expecting to come up and talk to us at this point, maybe in a half an hour, maybe as long as an hour from now. He is still down there touring the scene, the wreckage. We can show you video as he first arrived here. This was probably about 45 minutes to an hour ago now when he first arrived here right by the Spuyten Duyvil train station. And we are hearing now, actually, they are getting ready to, he's not here yet. We have a few minutes warning, but the governor's people are now telling us he is coming to my location. He'll be here in the next few minutes.